Obama missing after his contractor found with shooter's private plane and what it was used for. The day the news of the country's most deadly shooting attack, former President Barack Obama immediately came out with bravado to reclaim his role commander-in-chief. Despite using the tragedy to speak of gun control on day one, he has strangely gone silent since as the investigation progressed. This coincided with a massive void in information available to the public, which was suspicious given this was the deadliest shooting in modern history. More has been released on past attacks far sooner than what's been made available on this one, and now we know the disturbing reason why. The country is reeling from the attack, which has only been made more disconcerting in the aftermath with the massive lack of information about how and why this happened. This is never the protocol, as the public needs answers to what happened as their security is at stake. If the obvious secrecy seemed strange, there was a reason for that, with what's now finally coming out at the same time that former President Barack Obama has suddenly gone missing. The plot has just thickened. If you suspected a government involvement in the scrupulous planning that no average Joe is really capable of doing on his own, you were probably right. The mysterious Stephen Paddock is an average, faceless guy who blends into society despite being rather wealthy. Paddock had several investment properties and apparently at least one private plane, which ended up in unusual use after he reportedly sold it to an intelligence contractor who was part of Obama's administration. While that raises some eyebrows, what else was discovered about this alarming sale pretty much blows the investigation wide open as to why the FBI is protecting and even changing so many facts about this crucial incident that killed 59 Americans and wounded over 500 more. A few internet sleuths have taken matters into their own hands after the obvious disinformation campaign by the mainstream media surrounding the Las Vegas shooting, the Daily Sheeple reported. Before you board the skepticism train, the proof is in the information provided on via the FAA. Of course, this isn't something that CNN will be quick to expose, as it reveals the attack is worse than we thought and may not end with these 59 victims. Mike Toke is limited to a certain character count in the written portion for the tweet, so his message only says so much. However, he lets the evidence he lays out say far more than what the site limits him to writing. It's now becoming more clear than ever that the government is hiding the facts from us to protect themselves. Mike Tokes, breaking, users on /pulse/ have discovered flight records and a plane that belonged to the Las Vegas shooter. It is connected to an intelligence contractor whose owner previously worked for the Obama administration. The Daily Sheeple explains what the evidence in this tweet means and is not looking good for Obama's administration. Not surprisingly, the former president is nowhere to be seen since initially trying to come out as a hero, pushing for gun control, of course. Looking closely, the first thing you will notice is that the shooter, Stephen Paddock, had a pilot license and owned 2 planes. This is well-established fact. The tail number of one of those planes is N5343M, a Cirrus SR-20. You can see that this was owned by Paddock by going to the website flightaware.com. But Paddock doesn't own this plane anymore. It was grounded 3 years ago, and it's now in the hands of none other than Volant LLC, which there is little information on. However, Volant Associates is none other than a Department of Defense contractor. Meaning Paddock's plane has been in the hands of the United States government for the past 3 years and grounded since, if Volant LLC is being used as a way to hide information. Considering what Volant Associates does, that wouldn't be so far-fetched. But the plane's information is all easily verified here on FlightAware.com. It's been in Roanoke, Virginia since April 25, 2014. Volant describes its mission on their website as providing the industry's preeminent professionals to discriminating U.S. government and intelligence and defense industry customers. The registration of this plane is also listed as active even though it hasn't been flown in 3 years. Strange enough yet? Well, it gets even better. The FAA should have this same information. But they don't. Their website shows that a different aircraft, a Cessna 152, maintains that tail number and it was last registered to a person in San Diego, California. The FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, is a government agency, and it appears that it has scrubbed this plane's information. Now, why would they do that? Well, the plot still thickens. In the age of the internet, with every reputable business being represented by some kind of a website, it's strange that a contractor company successful enough to purchase an airplane is practically nowhere to be found online. The only plausible reason for this is something to hide, or perhaps Volantel LLC is a cover company for the defense contractor. If so, inquiring minds want to know what they're trying to hide and why. This is another major cover-up that government workers have been caught in since the Sunday shooting. Valet record proves that the FBI had intentionally misled the public on Paddock's check-in day at Mandalay Bay, as exposed by reporter Laura Loomer, the Gateway pundit reported. Everyone was told that he checked in on Thursday, but was actually there on Tuesday to stay, 2 days longer than they said. Laura Loomer, exclusive pics, LV shooter's car, at FBI note inside at Mandalay Bay Valet Center proves FBI misled public about Stephen Paddock's check-in date. There's reason to question why they would intentionally want to hide such a simple fact about days stayed at the hotel. This, along with the overwhelming lack of information, only seems to suggest that they don't want the public connecting the dots, and that leads back to a bigger, sinister connection that they're desperate to conceal.
Thank you for not only the panel that's before us, but the panel you tried to have before us. Not only did Ben Rhodes not appearing cost us an opportunity to question Mr. Rhodes, it cost us the opportunity and the privilege to ask questions of our friend and colleague Tommy Cotton. Speaking of constitutional crisis, hauling a United States senator before a committee of Congress would really have created a constitutional crisis. So good thing for us, Tommy was willing to come on his own, and it would have, the background contrast would have been interesting to me. You know, the White House is very critical of Senator Cotton, and has been for several months now. Senator Cotton, of course, when he was serving tours of duty in the United States Army in Afghanistan and Iraq, Ben Rhodes was navigating the mean streets of a creative writing curriculum in his post. I mean that literally. That is not figurative. He has a master's in creative writing. And if you're interested in writing haikus and sonnets and novellas, he's probably the right guy. On the other hand, if you're advising the leader of the free world on foreign policy matters, I don't know how a haiku helps. But I would have enjoyed the opportunity to ask Mr. Rhodes how his background prepared him to sell the Iranian deal, but yet Tommy Cotton's background did not prepare him to criticize the Iranian deal. That would have been an interesting dichotomy for me. But what I really wanted to do, Mr. Chairman, was ask Mr. Rhodes to help me, as Gruber did in the past, understand what he meant by certain things. Mr. Chairman, he said, we an echo chamber. Does the chairman know who we is?
I do not.
Well, certainly he couldn't be referring to other presidential advisors, because he then invoked executive privilege, and he can't be talking about what other presidential advisors said. So it couldn't be that, could it?
I do not know.
Okay. Well, then he said, reporters call us to explain to them what's happening in Moscow and Cairo. And I'm curious which reporters that would be. Which ones call him to find out what's going on in Cairo? But we can't ask him because he's not here. And I would add, he has plenty of time to sit down for what he had hoped to be a fluff piece in the New York Times. He's been on television plenty of times. He had plenty of time to draft memos for the president, but he doesn't have time to come before a committee of Congress. And then this is what really concerns me, Mr. Chairman. In talking about those reporters, he said they literally know nothing. How does someone literally know nothing? He said they were 27 years old, which suggests that they probably have a driver's license at that point. You have to know something to get a driver's license. If they're 27, they'd be eligible to vote in the Democrat primary, more than likely. So you have to know something. So when you say they literally know nothing, that struck me. I wanted to ask him about that. Also, I think that his appearance today, had he bothered to come, would have created an opportunity for a little bit of bipartisanship, which I know our friends on the other side of the aisle like from time to time. It said he expressed contempt for the editors and reporters at the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the New Yorker. That might have provided an opportunity for some bipartisanship. It would have given us an opportunity to share our own frustrations. But he didn't come. Mr. Chairman, you do a great job leading this committee. It's up to you whether or not you assert the people's right to question Ben Rhodes. But this selective use of executive privilege on one day, but it's not executive privilege on the next, at some point Congress is going to have to stick up for itself. We're going to have to decide whether or not we do have a right to question people. And if you have time to make these comments to a reporter, you ought to be able to come explain yourself. And if you have time at the White House to send a bunch of mean tweets about a guy who served 2 combat tours in Tommy Cotton, and he's willing to come, but the creative writing expert isn't willing to come, at some point this body is going to have to stick up for itself. With that, I'd yield back to the chairman.